And with that, we are jumping into the Epstein didn't kill himself segment. And in today's Epstein segment, we have another. I spend entirely too much time on Twitter. This is terrible.
What do we call it?
It's not good for my mental health.
What do we call it? We're coining a phrase here right now.
Well, no, because that was for the first one. Twending.
Whenever things are trending on Twitter.
David wants to call it twending.
I want a hashtag. If Paris Hilton can claim that bullshit, I'm claiming twending.
All right, let's claim it.
Twending.
Anyway, we have a tweet from Kathy Griffin, and I'm just going to quote it real quick. It says,
"Oh fuck."
Quote, yeah, remember Kathy, the one that held up the severed Trump head, and that was apparently chill, but anybody that happens to like that guy, they're domestic terrorists. Yeah, that Kathy Griffin. Anyway, she says, quote, if you don't want a civil war, vote for Democrats in November. If you do want civil war, vote Republican. Now, the first thing that comes to mind right off the bat is that's a fucking threat. She's saying, if you don't vote for my people, you're voting for a civil war because my people aren't going to take too kindly to you not voting for them.
Remember the last election?
We're coming for you.
When they boarded up all the windows?
Yeah.
To protect everybody from the riots that if Trump didn't get elected or...
No, it was the opposite.
Well, it turned out to be the opposite because nobody rioted after Trump didn't get elected.
Yeah. You think they were boarding up all those windows in case Biden won? So yeah, this isn't just theory land.
A lot of Trump supporters in those BLM movements, huh?
that Kathy Griffin is. This isn't just theory or just some brain dead celebrity tweeting nonsense. There's a lot of people who feel the way Kathy Griffin does, and the reason why this tweet stuck out is because even though it happened after we had recorded last week's episode talking about the Biden speech and how the optics of the red lighting behind him and being flanked by the Marines and all that kind of stuff was intentional, and it's intentional to provoke a response from you, is Kathy Griffin would, in the very same vein, let's say the red wave happens, a bunch of Republicans get elected, and the quote-unquote civil war pops off. Again, let's set aside which side would start that, but the point is, she wants you to know that any sort of violence that happens is pretty much ex ante justified because, damn it, you voted for Republicans. You voted for those evil, terrible, fascist Nazis, and therefore, Griffin's calls to violence, either explicit or implicit, are always justified.
I thought of Peter Griffin.
Which one? The quotes are endless. I know. Which quote?
No, just like the Griffin's comments. I was like, to the Hinden Peter. It's like I can't bring that. But again, like, yeah, and then this is the juxtaposition too. The person on the left is inciting civil war. It's like, aren't you the side? And I don't know if I brought this up on this podcast. I'm sure I have a multitude of times. Aren't you the side that doesn't have any guns? You're picking a fight with the side that has all the guns, but we don't have F-15s. But Kathy Griffin does apparently. So shit.
Well, but see, that's really the point, and that gets to the mindset of these people, and it gets to why they cheer Biden when he makes that stupid F-15 versus AR-15 comparison.
Protect me, Daddy. Protect me. You're going to protect me.
You're exactly right. Fundamentally, at base, again, if this was a state of nature situation where it was survival of the fittest, these people would be dead in 5 seconds because they are fucking cowards. They are the ones who cheer 87,000 IRS agents because they want those agents coming and knocking on your door.
Because they believe they're going to be knocking on multimillionaires' doors.
Well, or just...
bless your heart.
Or forget that. They're political enemies. They're not going to be come knocking on their doors because they always do the right thing. And even more than that is a hallmark of cowardice it's the whole like alligator mouth, jaybird ass kind of thing. The ones who talk the loudest and talk the most, like the one, I think you made it on episode 110, the example of a street fight. It's usually just a bunch of chest bumping and name calling, but there's never any blows that are actually thrown.
The people that know what they're doing don't call for fights.
Exactly. So that's what these people are. And that's why they're so ready to say
because they don't know what true violence is. Because these fuckers think silence is violence, for Christ's sake. Like,
not only do they not know what what true violence is, they know that they're not going to be the ones with their asses on the line to have to step up and do it, first of all. And second of all, it's a delusion. And Lenin had a saying for these people. They were called useful idiots. And to put it into the Cliff Note version, basically what a useful idiot is, it is somebody who supports a regime, a movement, whatever, but they support it not knowing the true objective of that movement or that regime. So the reason why Lenin coined the term useful idiots is because a lot of people supported the Bolsheviks taking over in Russia, not knowing that the true objective of the Bolsheviks was once they gained political power, they were going to turn on all their political enemies and anybody who had any misgivings about it, including the people who pushed for them to take power in the first place. So Kathy Griffin, in complete useful idiot fashion, says, well, we got to echo the Biden thing, F-15s versus AR-15s, and we're going to have a civil war. In her mind, the only way she ever thinks of herself as is synonymous with the regime. And the regime is anybody that stands opposite Donald Trump. That ranges from, again, to quote back for the last segment, Hillary Clinton to Mitch McConnell. The establishment, whether they be right or left, the point is that they run this show, and don't you dare ever vote for anybody who they haven't pre-approved. Kathy Griffin thinks that small circle she's a part of, and that if they get their total tyrannical, despotic control of everything and basically wipe their ass with the Constitution as they've been doing for decades, that they're never going to turn on her. That apparatus is only always going to be used against her political enemies. And that's why she has no problem pushing for it to have more and more power and to ramp up the rhetoric against who she perceives as her political enemies, because she thinks she's always going to be in the in group. Well, we got news for you, Kathy. You're not in the in group now, and you surely aren't going to be if that whole shadowy government takes more and more power and more control than they already have.
We know you are a sycophant. We know that you just do these things to get publicity because you're probably going on tour sometime soon. You want all your fucking fans to go out there and buy your tickets and do all that stuff and support you and do all that stuff. I get it. It's cool. But however, like he was saying, you think you're on the in crowd. And like we always say on this podcast, if you light that fire or you swing that door, it's always going to swing back twice as hard. So you start intimating about civil war. Remember that one time that they said Donald Trump was a Russian Manchurian candidate, bought and paid for?
Yep. I think they're still saying that.
Yeah, they are. Even though there's zero evidence to support it, and then it comes out that their new favorite president is probably the closest thing to a Russian or Chinese fucking Manchurian candidate that we've ever had, with a lot of fucking information. They're suppressing it. They
or
just
at
had
least
one of the
his
board.
ass is owned by them anyway.
Correct.
He may not be sympathetic to him, but there's definitely some.
They're getting a lot of money off of him right now, and it's pretty troubling. Anyway, not the point. The point is that. But what's everybody saying about Biden? He's not fit for the office. He's really we've established that. So what door do you think is going to swing back when Trump runs again? Because as we know, like we've alluded to in the previous podcasts leading up to this one, Trump is thinking about running again, and they're doing everything they possibly can to legally block him from running again because they don't think they can win, despite the fact that they have the House, the Senate, and the presidency. They're running the fucking country right now, and all they can tell you is that the other side is evil. Despite where we're at as America right now. With a failing economy, fucking name a bad thing. Like meat is going up. My steak should have cost $100. It almost cost $200. Like, think about what's really happening right now. What they're telling you, is it what they want you to hear, or is it what you should hear? And this isn't what you should hear. This is what they want you to hear. This is that, like Dane said, like bumping your chests to make the other guy throw the punch and then say he was the asshole, despite the fact that you're yelling in his face, calling him a prick, insulting his wife in front of him, and he reacted accordingly. But then you say he was the assailant. You provoked him. There has to be something there. And this kind of rhetoric can't go on anymore, especially from fucking Kathy Griffin. Is she even B-list? Is she C-list? I don't see her any other time than
got a
fucking
Twitter blue check, so she's an important person apparently.
Fuck. All I see is fucking Anderson Cooper trying to like dust over her fuck ups on New Year's Eve every now and again, and that's it. That's all I know Kathy Griffin from. So again, like, I don't know, man. Like, you can't say these things and not be held accountable for them.
So the historical do's and don'ts to wrap up the Epstein segment before we get into the main is, in terms of them trying to provoke you, obviously it goes without saying not to fall for it. And the reason why you don't want to fall for it is because a much bigger, more powerful enemy cannot be brought down. This is the old Sun Tzu art of war kind of thing, right? Where if your enemy has an overwhelming advantage in one area, you want to, as much as you possibly can, take that advantage and make it like a weight around their neck. Take that advantage and make it be their biggest hindrance in terms of defeating you. So one way to not do that, so here's the historical examples of what not to do, is the firing on Fort Sumter by the Confederates in the Civil War, and then Germany in World War I going through Belgium to get to France as opposed to going directly to France. Now, in both of those cases, you had a very powerful foe who did not have what's called a casus belli. They did not have a reason to declare war or turn rhetoric into reality in terms of being belligerent. The Union was chomping at the bit to engage militarily with the Confederate States, but the Confederate States leaving alone was not enough. What they needed was an excuse to go to war, and the firing on Fort Sumter gave the Union that excuse. Just like Germany going through Belgium to get to France in World War I, before that, Great Britain didn't have an excuse to go to war. Now, going through Belgium wasn't exactly the real reason, but it gave a certain veneer of plausibility to the rest of the world for why Britain could then declare war on Germany. So don't do as Germany did or as the Confederate States did and give your opponent an excuse to go to war. Instead, do as Michael Collins did in the Irish fight for independence against the British, where Michael Collins knew that if he went to combat against the British directly, they had many more men, much more ammunition, much more, intelligence, more powerful in every way you could think of. So what did he do? Little things here and there to provoke an over-response by the British. That over-response was oftentimes way out of proportion to what Collins and his agitators would do. And that won the hearts and minds of the people in the middle, who may initially have thought of Collins and the Irish rebels as, too far out of left field, and maybe we don't really want to get on their side. But it's the British repeated over response using that excess power. Michael Collins turned and made a weight around the British Empire's throats, because then it made it look like, why is this big powerful empire doing it to these little ragtag group of guys here in Ireland? And that is what helped the Irish win their war for independence. And so much in the same way that Kathy Griffin just as more of a symptom of what is really at issue, which is the powerful elite that run this country and don't want you to have an opinion outside of what they've pre-approved. Don't fall for their tricks in being provoked. Don't do something stupid, which then gives them justification to come down on you heavy-handed. Let them do the heavy-handed first, and then you'll win the hearts and minds of the people in the middle to eventually have the numbers to, take them down on your own. And again, this doesn't have to be in a wartime setting, despite that's what all the historical examples were. It can be just winning enough people to your side to where they realize that war is not really worth it.
Or just do what you normally do and don't fucking listen to Kathy Griffin. Anyway.
That's the Cliff Notes version.
Right.